Well, hello there. Welcome back. I'm sorry I took a little bit of a break. We are reading excerpts from this book called Chosen Children 2021, Children as Commodities in America's Failed Foster Care and Adoption Industries by Glory Carangelo. She does have a lot of other books that are quite interesting. I'll probably grab some during the year, but I'm really obsessed with this book and the content that she puts into it. There's a lot of research, a lot of good information, so there's really no chapters. I'm probably just going to be jumping around. I'm just letting you know. So this particular video is going to be about the civil and human rights in adoption. So this does start on page 79 if you are reading along. There can be no legally protected interest in keeping one's identity secret from one's biological offspring, and parents and children are considered co-owners of the information regarding the event of birth. The biological parent's interest in reputation is not alone deserving of constitutional protection. The source of this quote is the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, HEW, that's the initials, regarding the secrecy component in the proposed draft Model Adoption Act of 1980. The section, however, was deleted before passage at the behest of Senator John Tower of Texas. Noted womanizer, alcoholic, an adopter, bolstered by 3,000 letters to HEW, received by 98% of adopters who objected to the open records provision. So what that means is that during this time, 98% of those that wrote those 3,000 letters were from the adoptive parents, because they did not want those records to be opened. They did not want to have to then explain to their children that they were adopted. Now, during this time, closed adoptions were very popular. Open adoptions weren't a thing until the late 1980s, early 90s. I was probably one of the first in the bunch in the 90s. So closed records meant that if a child is of the same race, so not transracial, but if they're of the same race of the adoptive parents, then they can therefore not have to disclose that they were not biologically their parents. Now, this becomes an issue later on when it comes to knowing your identity. The child will always know, as we've been reading from The Primal Wound, that no matter what, whether you tell them or not, it's better to tell them. Please, 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 always tell your children up front. Be open and honest. But when that happens and the adoptee later finds out, they will have not only identity issues, but major trust issues. They will never be able to fully trust you again. Even if you then explain why, they're never going to trust you because you hid that information. They deserve every right to know that information. Anyway, moving on. Where were we? With regard to adoption itself, many children's rights organizations tout the right of the child to a permanent family. It is also a meaning of the right to be adopted, as well as a right to adopt, or to claim of entitlement to another's child. Basically, nobody is entitled to anyone's kid. Let's be clear here. That is wrong. But that is what they're saying when they're talking about the right to a permanent family. They forget that there are other options beyond adoption, which can have a home and a family without erasing their identity. And that's something that we continue to bring up as adoptees, that there are these other options, but the first and foremost is that we preserve the family if and when possible. That should be the first goal. But, people are entitled, which is the issue, and that's what we're bringing up. All right, anyway. But several governments have changed their formerly liberal adoption policies and even halted inter-country adoptions as a result of deaths of children at the hands of American adopters. So what that's saying is that a lot of countries now have said, nope, you're not allowed to adopt out of our country, specifically to America. There are other countries who actually do kinship first. So they try to preserve the family. The next step would be kinship, and then it would be a legal guardianship before adoption. The best example, and again, these are not perfect examples, but the best example of this is Australia and New Zealand. A lot of European countries are also very similar. Again, not perfect, but a lot better. Most countries do not have a privatized infant adoption industry, right? They're not allowed to buy babies, which is important.